Hello and welcome to the Fiber Circus. It is episode 34 and it is March 5th, 2020. I'm your host Elizabeth, coming to you from southern Indiana, where I have a hand dyeing, knitting, machine knitting, and fiber farm known as the Spotted Circus. If you would like to get a hold of me, all show notes and contact information is just down below in the show notes. And please hit like and subscribe. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you enjoy the podcast. So this week I've been working, okay, it hasn't been just this week. It's been like 2.5 weeks because things have gotten a little bit busy now that festival season's starting to pick up for me and it's starting to warm up outside. So I'm trying to get a few more farm things done. So it's been a little bit chaotic here recently. So I've been doing a bit of knitting though. So my first work in progress is a pair of socks because I really needed something that I could work on while I was traveling or while I was sitting in meetings. So you guys haven't seen these socks in probably since last October, I'm guessing. So since October, I've done a whole 1, 2, 3.5 stripes. So these are just plain vanilla socks going toe up 2 at a time magic loop. And the colorway is called Fire and Ice. It's one of the yarns that I've dyed. It's a self-striper, obviously. And it was one batch that didn't come out correct. The normal Fire and Ice has equal stripe sizes. This black stripe should have been thicker and the aqua stripe should have been thinner. So this is on my Superwash sock base, and I have a few of these up in the shop if you like the socks. I'm knitting them currently on size... Oh, there we go. This is one where it's on the cord. 2.25 millimeter, which are US size 2. So, there's not a whole lot you can really say about socks. I'm just knitting around and around in a circle. I think that they're 72 stitches wide. And this is just kind of my don't have to think a whole heck of a lot when I'm sitting in my car or going to a meeting type knitting. And it's currently living in this cat sushi bag, which is by Star Knits. So, very simple work in progress. It's obviously an eternal work in progress. I like hand knit socks, however I don't like knitting hand knit socks. So, that's the first thing that's on my needles. The second thing that's on my needles is something that we probably haven't seen since about the second episode that I filmed, because I started on it and then I decided that it was too much work. And I've just figured out that I have left the pattern someplace else. Okay, so this is a cowl, and I'll put the name of the cowl down in the description here. And it's a colorwork cowl and I know it's a Brooklyn tweed pattern. And you can see I've got 3 colors going on there. And I picked this back up again because I wanted to work on my colorwork, on my stranded colorwork with 2 colors at the same time. I was right about this point, about 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't figure out where I was at in the colorwork pattern. So I had screwed up someplace that was very obvious. So I ripped it completely out. And so in the last 2 weeks, this is all I have left from where I was. So I've got another probably 2 or 3 rows. So I've done 2 repeats out of 4 for this cowl. And it looks pretty decent when it's from a distance, if you don't really look up close. So I'm working on practicing my dominance with this cowl. I'm knitting it on size 7 needles, and this is a fingering weight. So those are pretty good sized needles. And it's being knit in Brooklyn Tweed's Loft, which this is an American Targhee Columbia wool. Here's 2 of the colors. This is Almanac and Sap. And then I think the yellow is called Haystack, if I remember right. Loft is an interesting yarn. I bought this, I think, when I was on a trip out to Colorado once, and I realized I didn't really have any knitting with me. And at the time, it was when this brand had just really started to come out, and it was, woo, everybody wants to knit with Loft. So I broke down and bought it, because I have 2 skeins of each of these, and then 1 skein of the yellow. And It's not the softest wool. It's slightly scratchy. This cowl is designed to be doubled over and then you 3-needle bind off this edge. For the inside of the cowl, I don't think I'm going to use this. I think I'm going to use something softer that my skin won't mind so much. Because this just is slightly itchy to me. It's a gently spun fingering yarn. It's a woolen yarn. 275 yards over 50 grams. What I don't like about Loft is, so here's a little section of the Loft. I mean, it's pretty to look at, you know, it's a pretty nice, bumpy-ish looking yarn. However, it takes absolutely no effort at all to pull it apart. And part of that is because it's a woolen yarn, it's a woolen spun, so it's light and airy, and very lofty without a lot of twist. The other part of it is the breed of sheep that was used in this. They're not exactly a real long stapled sheep. So durability wise, this would not wear well for socks. You would end up with pills left and right. It's difficult to seam with because of the short staple and the fact that in seaming you want to be able to pull it pretty tight. So I'm working on it. Totally don't know off the top of my head what it's called. To me, they look kind of like little alien heads, like with little yellow mohawks, but that's definitely not the pattern name. But I will make sure I put it down in here since I managed to forget the pattern. It's going pretty well. I've got 2 rows where I have to carry 3 colors, and that's been a challenge, figuring out how to get my fingers to work so that way I can carry all 3 at once. But my tension's definitely better than what it was the very first time that I did this, so I'm glad that I ripped it out, because it definitely looks a lot more even, and it looks a lot nicer. So yeah, this is my cowl that I'm working on, that I can't remember the name of. But it's definitely a Brooklyn tweed pattern. And it is currently in my pink llama bag from Ginger Snap, that out of Canada. So right now everything's fitting in there. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze, but it's working. I did not work it all on my cat couch because I refused to make a little bitty cat afghan, so cats just have to use it as is. They definitely are laying on it quite a bit. If I set it down and not up out of the way, the cats will immediately gravitate towards it, which is good. Sometimes both cats sit on it, and because I used 1/2-inch foam instead of 1-inch foam, the back's a little bit flimsy, so I'll get one cat sitting here and then the other cat will decide to sit on the back and just kind of recline it like a recliner, even though it's not. So I haven't worked on that. However, I have finished my Snow Fuzz hat by Emily O'Brien, and here's the hat. I'm hiding the fact that I haven't woven in the ends. So this is the way it is written with the pattern. However, I'm going to wear it inside out because I like the way it looks a lot better. You can actually see the texture better when it's inside out, in my opinion. This is knit with my alpaca sock yarn and my brushed alpaca in the rhubarb colorway. And it's a nice baggy hat. It'll definitely be super warm with this brim that's been doubled over. So I'm pretty happy with it. I need to actually wash and block it and weave in the ends. You know, why weave in ends? Especially when you wear it inside out, because then you can completely hide it. So it's done though. I think it looks good. It'll go in my shop when I'm traveling as an example, so that way people can see what holding those 2 yarns together will look like and what the texture will feel like. So pretty happy with it. And you can see the pattern definitely is much more visible on that side than on this side. And she does say in the pattern that it can be reversible, so I'm taking her up on it. It's going to be reversible. So that is my finished object for the week. Other finished objects. I technically have some machine knit finished objects that I'll get to here in a minute. I did do a bit of spinning. I am working on my imaginary points goal for the Super Summer Knit Together that the Knit Girls are hosting in Nashville in July. And part of it is you can knit patterns that the teachers that are coming have done. And one of the teachers that's coming is Jillian Merino. Having a brain fart there. She wrote a book called Yarn a Texture, and in the back of it there is a coil spun sweater that's hand spun that isn't sized really large, so I'm going to make it. I'm going to grade it up because it's a very simple pattern once you get going on it. And when my yarn is plied, it's going to be similar to like what this one was, where you've got kind of the lumpy bumpy coily texture, and it ends up being a bulky yarn. I'm going to need probably close to 1,000 yards of hand spun to do that. So I've started spinning the coily part, the thick part, that I'll then ply with a thinner yarn. And this is in my stained glass merino base. And this colorway is called Lurid Orchid. And it's one where I had enough of it just kind of sitting there to be able to start spinning on it. This is probably about a pound right now on this bobbin. You can see how big this bobbin is compared to my head. It's not exactly small. So I'm now at the point where I'm debating, am I going to stop and go ahead and ply this, or am I going to try to put more yardage into this? I haven't honestly decided yet. Part of me thinks I need to make sure that I spin all these singles to make sure they're pretty consistent first, but I'm not sure as to what I'm going to do. I think I have 3 more braids of this fiber, and to spin this I wanted a pretty bulky single. You can see here, oh, where's the end at? I just tucked the end in because it was kind of in my way. Oh crud. Not a smart decision when you are spinning yarn to tuck in the end. Alright, let's look here. Here, yarn end. Well, I know it has to be in this zone because this is where I was. That was pretty stupid. Note to self, never tuck in the ends of the yarn. So anyways, it's a pretty bulky weight yarn so far that I'm spinning. And I've got some thick and thin spots in here, and that's on purpose because I want to give it a little bit more texture to it. It's going to drive me nuts now that I know that I don't know where the end is. And the whole reason why I tucked it in there was because it was fuzzy and sticking out. And my brilliant mind thought that that was a great idea. And it was not a great idea. Let's see, if I was spinning it would be going around this way. Alright, project for tomorrow. Figure out where the end is. I may call this my Hulk sweater because it's very Hulkish. And it's not showing up on camera as chartreuse is what it is, but it's like a chartreuse in purple with the black. And you can see the sparkly fire star in it, so it definitely sparkles quite a bit. So this is going to be a slightly longer term project to knit and finish spinning on, but hopefully I'll work on that when I'm traveling and doing some of my demonstrations over the next couple of weeks. So that's all the spinning. Machine knitting, I've done a few things there. So I'm donating a hat and cowl combo for the National Alpaca Association silent auction next week. And I finished the hat and got it all seamed up. So you can see, it's a pretty simple beanie here. I guess you could roll this up if you have a pretty small head. I think I have a big head. So you've got a hat, and it's black with little gray alpacas, and then a matching cowl. So you can be very stylish and warm in the winter time, of which it is no longer. It's March. It's technically not winter anymore. This is knit out of my alpaca sock yarn, which is an alpaca superwash merino and nylon yarn. And these two things take roughly 2.5 to 3 skeins of yarn at 400 yards per skein. I need to wash and block these still. That's also on my list of to-do this week. So yeah, that'll be in the silent auction if you're going to the National Alpaca Show. And then I decided that maybe some people live someplace warmer where they don't necessarily need to wear warm hats, but they still want alpaca stuff. So I got in my mind that I needed to put that pattern onto a pillow. And when I went into Joann's, I looked at the sizes of pillows. And for some reason to me, when I looked at the 16-inch pillows, I thought, those look really small. So I ordered 18-inch pillows. Here's an 18-inch alpaca pillow. It takes 2.5 skeins of yarn. So you're looking at retail $60+ in yarn. Here's the little bitty alpacas. Oh, and they're upside down. That doesn't help the look. Alright, so there's the alpacas. I also have one of these in black with neon alpacas that I'm working on. So I've done the side seams on the top. I still have to do the side seams here. And then it's supposed to be removable. So it'll come up like this, and then you'll fasten this down over it. I haven't figured out how exactly I'm going to do the fastening. I should have probably equally spaced like some buttonholes in this band right here so that way I could button it. But I didn't think that far ahead, obviously. So now I'm looking maybe at doing some snaps of some sort. I also, on this one, when I created it, from about here to here, I did a looser tension gauge than what I did here. And that's causing an issue because it's longer than what it should be by about 1/2 inch. So, in the next week I have 2 pillows to get seamed and somehow figure out how I'm going to convince them to stay shut. So, not real sure what I'm going to charge for these yet either, given how much in yarn there is, plus you get the pillow. But yeah. So yeah, this is my giant alpaca decor pillow for my home interior collection. Somebody was concerned that the yarn would snag, and it's knitted a pretty tight gauge actually, so I don't think it's gonna snag. I tried running a sample through the washer to felt it slightly, so that way maybe it'd be a more durable fabric. Didn't go so well. Because the merino wool in here is Superwash merino wool, and it's about 30% superwash, it didn't shrink correctly. So just the alpaca, which is only 60% of the composition, shrunk. Didn't go so well in the shrinking. So that idea is off the table. But I need to get these sewn up and these blocked as well. So I'm going to have a blocking party probably here this weekend. So spinning, machine knitting. It's the majority of the machine knitting that I've been doing. Like I said, the stuff's starting to get busy for travel and whatnot. This weekend on Saturday, I'm actually going to the Indiana Sheep Association sheep shearing school up at Purdue. So Saturday morning, I've got to be up at Purdue by 8 o'clock, and it's about a 2.5 hour drive. And then I'm going to spend most of the day shearing sheep, which are not clean animals, they're dirty animals, they're woolly, they're full of lanolin and dirt. And then I'm going to drive back home afterwards. So I need to make sure I take a change of clothes, because otherwise it will not be a fun drive back home. But hopefully that's going to give me the confidence to go ahead and shear our sheep, because they're coming on a time where they need to be shorn pretty soon. And if I can do it myself, it's a lot easier. I don't have to worry about waiting on somebody's schedule and stuff in order to get it done. So I've got that coming up this week. Next week, Wednesday through Sunday, I will be up at the National Alpaca Show in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Coliseum. It's open to the public Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and there'll be probably 500 or 600 alpacas there. There'll be vendors. There's alpaca selfie booth. There is alpaca yoga. So really good time. Definitely an interesting experience to get to see some of the top alpacas in the U.S. up there. So after that, thinking on the fly here because I forgot to write some of this stuff down. In April, the first weekend I'm committed to a shearing in Kentucky. The second weekend in April I'm planning on shearing here. Then the third weekend in April on Friday and Saturday is the Fiber event in Greencastle, Indiana, where I'll be vending at. Then I think I may have a week or two free. Let me think. What do I have in May? I think I have something going on in May besides my big trip out to Colorado for shearing, but I don't remember what it is exactly. I'll find out when I get there, obviously. And then the first weekend in June is the Hoosier Hills Fiber event, or Fiber Festival, I guess, up in Franklin, Indiana, which is just south of Indianapolis, and I'm vending up there as well. July is the Super Summer Knit Together Retreat where I'm vending, and then the Natural Fiber Extravaganza, which are both in Nashville, Tennessee. July, August. September's the Wool Gathering over in Yellow Springs, Ohio, where I'm vending at. And then October is SAFF out in Nashville, North Carolina. So I got a few things coming up. I had a pretty big commission order come in to do some dyeing, so I'm going to be pretty busy in the dye pots. So it's going to be one of the biggest orders I've ever done, and I'm sure that by the time I'm done with it, I'm going to be really sick of the colorway that I'm dyeing up, but it'll be a lot of fun to do. So it's just an interesting logistical experience when you only have 2 pots and quite a bit to do. So working on that. Farm news. Not a lot of big news. It's muddy, extremely muddy. We have one guard dog that's a Merino Shepherd, which is a lot like a Great Pyrenees, and his name is Yeti. And then we also have our young pup, Loki, who's a Anatoly Shepherd. Loki doesn't mind getting in the mud. He's in the mud like up to here right now, running around through the pasture. So he's got, you know, a good 3 or 4 inches of mud up in his legs. The other dog, Yeti, doesn't like mud. He's a princess about it, and to the point where he will refuse to walk through the mud to come out and eat his food. So we have to take his food into him. So he's being a bit of a princess about it right now. And we're also dealing with some kind of issue with our big weather Ted, our Teeswater. And he's going on 8, so he's getting a little bit older, but he started drastically dropping weight recently. And he had rickets when he was pretty young before we actually got him. And it's thrown off the way that his back legs have grown, but then it's also thrown off his bite quite a bit for some reason. So his bottom jaw is sticking out farther than what his top jaw is. And in the front, a sheep doesn't have top teeth. So when they go to bite grass or pick up stuff, the bottom teeth need to connect with the top palate in order to be able to grasp and pull stuff in. And since his sticks out so far, we think that the problem is that he's not able to eat like the pellets and stuff quick enough in order to get them in. And we don't think he's picking up hay quite right as well. So we've turned him loose in our driveway, which he's been loose for about a week now. And so far he has not eaten any of our packages or scared anybody off. Although he's big. I mean, he's still a 200-pound sheep in a coat. And when somebody pulls in the driveway, he thinks that they may be there to give him a treat. So he goes trotting up to him as fast as a 200-pound sheep can and baws very, very loudly at him. And the FedEx guy turned around with quite the shocked look on his face the other day when he showed up. So it's kind of entertaining having a farm sheep running around. So we're feeding him on his own, and we're hoping that that's going to kind of help him out a little bit. If we don't see much of an improvement here in the next week or 2, we may take him into the vet. Loading him up is going to be hard because of the way his back legs are kind of bowed. He can't jump upwards very easily like the alpacas would into the van. So we're going to have to figure out a ramp that could support 200 plus pounds of sheep going up it. So that's going to be a challenge. So that's about all of the critter news, I think, for right now. Hopefully I'll do some footage while I'm at the National Alpaca Show so that we can see some of the fleeces and stuff. And if you're in the area or anywhere close by, feel free to stop by and say hi. It'll be a good time. Lots of really pretty alpacas and people more than willing to show them off to you. So, guess that's about it for this week, and we will talk to you later on. Bye!